Hi everyone, my name's Emma and I'm the Chief Executive of Cornwall Voluntary Sector Forum. I have a background in working in NHS England and local authorities and the voluntary sector over my career of the last 20 plus years. So VSF's core costs are funded by Cornwall Council and the Integrated Care Board. So Cornwall Council, as you know, is our local authority, and the Integrated Care Board is what used to be the Clinical Commissioning Group, and they commission services in the NHS predominantly. Those core costs are funded for a 3-year period. And we have also had some historic funding via things like the European Social Fund programme, and those have been to deliver specific pieces of work, like, for example, the VCSE Learning Academy, or to deliver task and finish pieces of work like the Youth Foundation development work that Sonia, our engagement officer, has been working on. We're a really small organisation at VSF. We have 8.5 full-time equivalent posts, and we receive £300,000 from the Cornwall Council and the Integrated Care Board, which contributes to our core costs around our staffing and our office and other associated costs. And then we apply for smaller grants that might be for specific pieces of work, which contribute to those broader costs that we have around, running the organisation and delivering the support that we deliver for the rest of the sector. So does VSF fund and manage community hubs? That's a really interesting question. Last year, VSF funded some hubs specifically to participate in an evaluation programme so that the hub network could demonstrate its impact on the sector and on people's wellbeing, and therefore hopefully to secure future funding for the wider hub network. And we used some of our ICB Pillar 2 money to do that. In 2022, so last year, the ICB made grants directly to the hub network, and those funding pots were to enable organisations in the network to open for longer, to pay their energy bills, and to support the warm spaces agenda. And it looks like, fingers crossed, that they're going to be providing grants directly to hubs again this year, which is great news. VSF have provided some communication support to the Community Hub programme, and I chair the steering group, which is open to anyone to attend. It's got all sorts of organisations from the voluntary sector, from our council colleagues, from the ICB and wider, and that's primarily because I was chairing that group in my previous NHS England role before I took up this post at VSF. So no, we don't fund or manage the community hubs in relation to funding and the operational VCSE collaboratives of organisations who deliver the hub network support and community gateway. Our role really is to support, as it is for other collaboratives of voluntary sector organisations like the Youth Foundation. And we usually get asked to do this because we're not involved in the delivery of services and therefore can often bring a more objective view to the discussion. Pillar 2, just a refresher from the last video. So we were given £3 million by the ICB, and we've split that into £1 million a year over 3 years, which will ensure some sustainability of funding for the sector over those 3 years. We've split that funding into 3 pillars, if you remember. So Pillar 1 was about funding VSF's core costs. That's the money that I talked about earlier in relation to funding our core costs. That's 180,000. Pillar 2 is around funding strategic sector infrastructure. So that's about equipping our thematic alliances to develop thematic and strategic understanding of customer need, to identify gaps, to understand more about what the existing community assets are, to promote the potential of the sector in being able to design creative solutions to meet the needs of our communities. It's about influencing the Integrated Care Board and the sorts of services that they commission and deliver, and doing that to ensure that the voice of the voluntary sector, from big, medium and small organisations, are really influencing what our statutory sector partners are commissioning and delivering. So are we funding people to attend our alliances? At the moment, we haven't funded anyone to either chair or attend an alliance, but we have been having discussions with our alliance chairs about whether funding is a barrier to alliance attendance or participation. I think especially for our smaller VCSE organisations with very limited resource and time. So that's a live conversation that we've been having. And as a result of that, we're going to be launching an alliance budget. So using that Pillar 2 money, we will allocate a budget to each of our thematic alliances, and that will enable the group to use it for a range of things, which might include, for example, undertaking specific pieces of work, co-designing a new service, or perhaps attending a strategic group on behalf of the VCSE, and that budget could then pay for organisations to participate in that work if the alliance thought that that was appropriate. So we're not entirely sure yet what the process of reimbursement will be. We're still finalising that, and we'll make sure that the alliances know that as soon as possible. But it's likely to involve the alliance themselves making decisions about what that budget is spent on in a democratic way, so that the alliance can make the decision about what's being spent and on what, and be able to allocate that funding in a way which is going to have maximum impact to ensure that the voice of the sector is heard where it needs to be. So it's a great question about the process for appointing alliance chairs or potentially members to attend meetings or events. Historically, we haven't actually had a process for appointing alliance chairs. People have simply been asked, and we're so grateful to all of our alliance chairs who've contributed their time and energy and brought their network knowledge to bring the alliances together over the last couple of years. Also supported by our VSF engagement officers, who I know are really valued by our alliance chairs. But we've more recently moved to a more fair and transparent process, and that involves electing our alliance chairs. And that means that it's the alliance members whose voice matters in the choice of their chair. It's not our decision as VSF, and that feels much more democratic and open to a wider range of organisations potentially to stand. And we're really keen to see that that opens up, and that a broad range of organisations get the opportunity to take that alliance chair role. So we haven't quite finalised the process for appointing alliance members to attend meetings or events on behalf of the sector or for doing specific pieces of work. But as I said, it will probably be an alliance decision, and we'll put together a bit of a framework around what that funding and remuneration might look like to ensure that it's an open and transparent process as we've developed for the election of the chairs. So if there is reimbursement to an alliance member for participating in work or attending forums or groups on behalf of the sector, then that would be paid to the organisation who would be releasing them to attend the event or to participate in the work. Pillar 3 is the pillar which is around thematic and place-based delivery. So that was, if you remember, 60% of our ICB grant funding. And that is about equipping the sector at place and around a thematic area to increase frontline delivery based on priorities identified within the sector and to address inequalities. So that, for example, might include place-based structures. Organisations might want to deliver around a community hub or around a primary care network, or it might award funding to organisations working with specific communities of identity or theme. And that the Pillar 3 is about enhancing universal and targeted support to individuals and communities. And that money is designed to go directly to VCSE organisations. If you remember from the last video, that Pillar 3 money is split into two pots. One is going directly to our integrated care area forums for them to determine the spend on the priorities of the integrated care area. That still has to be spent on services provided by the voluntary and community sector, but it's more focused potentially around what the priorities are for that particular place. And then the other 50% is going to go directly to voluntary and community sector organisations in the form of grants. How are we going to distribute the grants? So whenever VSF are asked to do something, we always ask ourselves whether there's someone better placed or more appropriate within the VCSE to deliver that work. Because our role is to connect, support and promote the volunteering community and social enterprise sector, not to get involved in frontline delivery of services. So with that in mind, we've asked Cornwall Community Foundation to administer the grants, and we're in the process at the moment of agreeing the application process with them. We're really keen to get this funding out to organisations in the first quarter of this financial year, and we know that it's really tough out there and that this grant funding will be really welcome to lots of organisations in the sector. So we're working really hard on getting the application process sorted with Cornwall Community Foundation, and I'm really hopeful that we can share more in the next month and that the application process will be underway by June at the very latest. So since my last video, we've been working hard to support the VCSE Collaborative, who were successful in securing the mental health and suicide prevention contract that was led by the ICB. This is a partnership of 8 voluntary sector organisations, delivery partners, who've come together into a single team to deliver a service that's about supporting people to improve their mental health and wellbeing, and along with statutory sector partners aiming to reduce the suicide rate in Cornwall. We know that things like managing long-term physical and mental health conditions, finance and debt worries, social isolation, and many, many other things are the cause of poor mental health and well-being. And the partnership involves organisations who focus on all of these areas. We've just agreed a name for the new service, which is super exciting, and it's going to be called People in Mind, which was co-designed with people with lived experience, and we'll be launching more details over the coming months. It's a personalised service which is going to support anyone over the age of 16 across the whole of Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly, and that'll be through a range of one-to-one and peer support opportunities that really start by focusing on what matters to the person and their family. And alongside the core service offer, there'll be a grant fund, which again will be managed by Cornwall Community Foundation and will be aimed at those organisations who are either working with specifically geographically deprived communities or communities of identity who might be at greater risk of struggling with their mental health. There's also a personal budget fund, which can pay for additional goods or services a person might need to improve their well-being and reduce their risk of suicide. And we're still really keen to bring in a partner who has a background in working with a range of people with disabilities. So we'd really welcome other VCSE organisations to get in touch if that's something that you're interested in. Our role in VSF is to be that single point of contact for the ICB commissioners and to manage the partnership, to collect the impact data and ensure that we're continuing to co-design, deliver and improve the services through the input of people with lived experience. And what's really exciting about this service is that it's being jointly commissioned by the Integrated Care Board and Public Health in Cornwall Council, and the service has been commissioned for 5 years, which is almost unheard of in the world of VCSE organisations. So that really gives us the chance to develop a service that's responsive and that changes over time to meet the needs of people using the service as we understand more about the things that really matter to them. And we're working really closely with our commissioners and our delivery partners to develop that service together, and a partnership of equals, which is really exciting. So that's what I'm really excited about at work this month. What I'm as excited about is the fact that our first pair of swallows returned over the Easter weekend, which is super exciting because they get fewer and fewer numbers every year, and they're already busy checking out the garage for their annual nesting site. I think this is amazing. My partner, who has most of his tools and stuff in the garage, is much less enthusiastic.